Hey, welcome to the podcast. This is the Surge Effect, and this podcast, well, it'll probably have an effect on you. Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Surge Effect. Today's episode of the Surge Effect, we're going to be talking a little bit about what's going on in Canada and the States, and this is what I like to call the XY Files, or the X Files and YouTube stuff. Just take a little bit of clips from each one and talk a little bit about it. Before I get started, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share my channel. It helps with the algorithm with YouTube, especially because they sometimes they put the slot of the video in wherever they see fit sometimes, whatever that person is talking about. So it goes up and down accordingly. All right, so let's get into it. So the first video I'm going to show you is a little bit about the ostriches going on out in BC. And if you have not seen anything about what was going on in BC with the ostrich farm, here is a little here's a little background on what that was all about.
In what has come to be known as one of the most shocking and controversial animal welfare events in recent Canadian history, more than 300 ostriches were taken by a firing squad in a large-scale operation at Universal Ostrich Farms in Edgewood, British Columbia. The event took place late on a Thursday evening, following a months-long standoff between the farm's owners.
Just want to warn you, too, that some of these pictures could be disturbing, so heads up.
National advocates and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. The incident drew widespread attention, not only from within Canada, but also across the border in the United States, after several high-profile figures, including U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and New York billionaire John Katzimatidis, personally intervened to plead for the birds to be spared. The story began several months earlier when an avian flu outbreak swept through the farm during the previous winter. The virus reportedly caused the loss of 69 ostriches from the flock, prompting the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to issue a federal order to cull all remaining birds.
The CFIA, you'll hear that a lot, the CFIA.
To prevent further spread. The decision, however, was met with immediate opposition from the farm's man.
Now look at this little article here that was created August 12th, 2021. Literally says the BC ostrich farm developing antibodies that could put an end to a certain virus that the world freaked out about 5 years ago. That article was written in 2021 because ostrich eggs they were doing studies about the antibodies inside the egg. So do some research.
Management and from international figures who argued that the surviving ostriches were not only healthy, but could be invaluable to future research efforts on avian immunity. The Universal Ostrich Farm had long been recognized for its unique breeding program and its rare genetic lines of birds. According to a farm spokesperson, the remaining flock, approximately 330 ostriches, showed no signs of illness or viral infection.
So if they showed no signs of illness or viral infection for literally over 300 days after the first initial contact, why did they have to destroy those birds?
The team insisted that their birds could provide valuable genetic data to scientists studying how certain avian species develop resilience against the H5N1 strain. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is known for his interest in animal and environmental causes, joined with officials including National Institute of Health Director Jay Bhattacharya and FDA head Martin Makary in appealing to the Canadian authorities. They argued that the birds could live for up to 50 years and that preserving them would allow scientists...
Notice that guy didn't have any hazmat suit on. He was right in there with the birds, no hazmat suit, but yet the other one was all hazmat suits and everything else. A lot of smoke and mirrors.
...to study immune longevity over time, potentially leading to major agricultural breakthroughs. In a formal letter sent on the 23rd of May, Kennedy emphasized the potential long-term value of the ostriches. He warned that the mass culling of entire flocks could erase critical genetic diversity that might otherwise help researchers understand resistance patterns in bird populations.
Now, why would they want to do that? Why would they want to get rid of decades and decades of genetic DNA for what? What is the reason behind it? Always ask the question why.
Kennedy's letter, underscored that indiscriminate destruction would remove opportunities to strengthen agricultural systems against future outbreaks, calling for a more measured and scientific approach.
Isn't that something? So that gives you a basic idea of what transpired out in BC with the culling of these ostriches. So they went through with it. After everything was all said and done, they went through with it and they slaughtered hundreds of ostriches.
We begin with news out of BC. The controversial cull at Universal Ostrich Farms in Edgewood, British Columbia is now complete, with about 300 birds shot dead last night in an operation that stretched several hours. That confirmation coming from the BC RCMP and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Here is some video from last night at the farm. The cull was at the center of an emotional protest and a high-profile court battle that went all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada, which in the end refused to hear the case. The CFIA says that after consulting experts experienced in managing ostrich disease outbreaks, it concluded the most appropriate and humane option was to use professional marksmen. The farm is still quarantined under the Health of Animals Act.
Hazmat suits.
The BC RCMP spoke about the operation earlier.
Hazmat suits. Weird, eh? It's kind of the optics, the whole optic thing. So anyway, here's one of the owners and had this to say, and this clip was through Rebel News.
You're looking at the image of the ostriches to this morning. What's your reaction?
Absolute friggin' disgust. How could anybody shoot that many healthy ostrich or any animal? My God, it's a massacre. Everybody knows that there was no disease in these birds. The CFIA refused to do a test. They never tested one of them animals. And because they want to destroy the...
Why would they not want to test one? Not one. Ask yourself why.
The science and the antibody program that's going on, with the explicit help of the court system, where the courts would not look at any data, any scientific reports or information after the first initial PCR test when nobody knew what it was. The CFIA blocked all of our expert opinions. And it's led to that. These birds are going to be martyrs, because with the law written the way it is, where a bureaucrat or anybody from CFIA can come on your farm, have a suspicion that you have a disease in your animals, and order the slaughter of them, is not Canada. We got to take Canada back.
Well, we got to take Canada back in more ways than one. But unfortunately, you have people sitting around that don't have Canadian citizens' best interest at heart. So here is another one of the, this is one of the daughters of the owner, and this is what she had to say. This was on a YouTube clip.
This is what pain looks like. You want to know what pain looks like, Canada?
A stormy stretch with the BC coast through tonight.
That's right. She's going to lose everything she's ever loved for 35 years that are healthy. She's going to lose everything she's loved. That's what pain looks like when the government fails you. And you remember that. Shame on you, Canada. Shame on you, government. Shame on you, Heath MacDonald and everybody who had the chance to do the right thing. Shame on you. She's going to lose everything she loves. Her family will never get these animals back, and Canada will never get these animals back. Shame on you. This is what pain looks like. You want to know?
Sad. Very sad. I don't know what else to say. That's raw human emotion of somebody that they just lost hundreds and hundreds of ostriches that they've been looking after, trying to find antibodies that are in those eggs to help mankind. Here's Ezra Levant and Chris Dacey. This is what they had to say.
Look, I'm in paradise. Then you look a layer behind and you see this. And the secrecy, the privacy fencing, all these things, they just lead to paranoia. They breed paranoia. They get people worked up. And, you know, they haven't provided counts of the number of ostriches. We know 100% that Spirit the ostrich was killed here under the, quote, care of the CFIA. You know, and they completely misrepresented that story.
Yeah, that was the bird that the police droned, spooked the bird. The bird got injured, and they put the bird down.
Yes.
And the media implied that was a death by avian flu.
Yeah, so they implied it was a sick bird. The bird was under special care. So there's an area just behind here where birds that need a little extra care, so say they hurt their toe or they have arthritis, they'd be looked after there. So they implied that this was a sick bird, which people will assume means avian flu, when in fact it was a perfectly fine bird that just needed a bit of care. And then it was spooked by low-flying RCMP drones. Not once, but twice. It was severely injured. Then, while the CFIA had already taken control, then it wasn't cared for properly and ended up dying of sepsis, according to the vet that was brought in. But it was lack of care.
But even, like, just stop for a second, because the way you're saying RCMP drones, because you're used to it now, you've been observing it for a month, but how insane is it that the police have their largest operation in BC, not taking on drug gangs, not taking on home invasions, the largest police operation in this province for the last 6 weeks has been here, and they are deploying drones. Drones are not...
Why? Once again, I love to ask the question, why? Why did so many police officers for such a long period of time keep people away from what was actually going on with those ostriches, right? Let's listen to what Mario Zelaya. Love Mario. He does some great work, and you've probably seen him a million times on X. He posts a lot on X, but this is what he has to say. He said basically about the ostrich, the facts, saying that last year and they were healthy today. Last year they're supposed to be sick, but they're healthy today. RFK wanted them. The U.S. Was willing to study them, and they were still all executed. CTV writes a misleading headline and post. A billionaire who funded BC ostrich farm protests. The protests were funded, the legal defense to try to save them. Okay, so listen what he says.
Our life changed forever when the Canadian government waged war on our small family in the middle of nowhere in a peaceful valley with hundreds of animals that had names. They were 35 years old. They were 20 years old. They were domesticated, prehistoric, beautiful animals that offered opportunity to the world in viruses and disease mitigation.
So for those who don't know, 300 ostriches were killed. Judge made a ruling, and because these birds were sick nearly a year ago, they refused to test them again, and they decided to kill them all. This is a picture of the aftermath. I don't want to zoom in too much, but it looks exactly what it looks like. Ostriches were exterminated by marksmen, snipers. Some of them were decapitated. To add insult to injury, the CTV put out this post and the news article saying something is rotten, says US billionaire who funded the ostrich farm protests. Here's the link to the original article so you can all see it. A few things. One, no billionaire funded any protests. He funded the legal defense to try to save these birds that have immunity. RFK in the US said he would take these birds on and he would keep them in the farm so they could be studied, so their antibodies could be studied. And see, this isn't the first time.
So RFK wanted the birds. He said he'd take the birds, and they still killed the birds. Why?
The government has done this. This isn't the first time I've seen this, where the government will hide behind best practices. And they'll say, we're just following global best orders instead of following common sense. I've seen it in Oakville myself, where you have a toxic dump that is leaching chemicals. And what they do is they say, we're testing this water, and we do it once every 4 years. Only the testing is done not when the snowmelt happens, when the most amount of chemicals will go downstream. They'll test it on a warm summer day where there's no rain and the test comes back biased. The same thing was done here. We're following global best practices. They were sick last year, and so the birds must go. And yes, this might happen to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of chickens every single year, which are confined, consumed. Maybe the same could be argued for these ostriches, but the reality is they're healthy. They're healthy today when they were executed. My friends, don't believe everything you read. Fortunately, I really do believe that mainstream media has an inherent bias. It's repulsive.
Exactly. So Mario did a great job on that, like I said, as always. So listen to what Ezra Levant, he asked a question to the federal health minister, Marjorie Michelle. Listen to this.
Secretary Kennedy, you can study these birds. It's sort of no skin off Canada's nose, and don't you think it would be helpful to have an ally in Trump's cabinet when we're doing our trade negotiations?
Prochaine question, merci.
That's my question. Don't you think it would be helpful to have a friend?
Next reporter, merci.
She looked at the other guy, and the guy literally said, "That's it. Next question." She does not even want to answer that question.
Oh, you're not going to answer, Minister?
Prochaine question, merci.
I don't understand. Did I do something wrong?
Next question, thank you.
Minister, did I miss an answer? I don't get it.
Look at her. Stand there, deer caught in headlights, not even answering a question. And she makes a couple $100,000 a year paid by the Canadian taxpayer.
Okay, I'll sit down. That's I guess it's question period, not answer period.
Merci beaucoup.
Yeah, they want to get him gone because Rebel News asks tough questions. No one wants to hear tough questions. All right, I'm just going to move on a little bit. Of course, being Remembrance Day the other day, November the 11th was Remembrance Day. And of course, this happened a few years back, and why Don Cherry 6 years ago was let go from his slot on Coach's Corner. Listen up.
You people love, that come here, whatever it is, you love our way of life, you love our milk and honey. At least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that. These guys pay for your way of life that you enjoy in Canada. These guys paid the biggest price. Anyhow, I'm going to run it again for you great people and good Canadians that bought a poppy. I'm still going to run it anyhow.
Love you for it.
Here we are, November 11th.
See that?
We're in Trelinkin, British
For
Cemetery in France.
For that little wee bit, he lost his job, and that was it for him. But Don was right. He was right. And other people didn't like it. Listen to what this judge had to say about wearing a poppy in court. Listen to this.
Nova Scotia's Chief Justices issued a statement today supporting individual judges prohibiting courtroom staff from wearing Remembrance Day poppies on the basis they're political statements. The heads of Nova Scotia's Supreme and Provincial Courts say judges have an obligation to ensure the courtroom is unbiased and impartial, and banning a symbol such as a poppy is not intended to undermine veterans, but to ensure everyone knows court is a neutral space. Nova Scotia's...
Exactly. Right? It's supposed to be a nonpartisan issue. Shouldn't be political at all. The poppy is worn by people to remember what veterans did all around this world for freedom. For freedom. I'm going to play you this clip of a World War II veteran. He was from Britain, and this is what he had to say. They were taking this video off for some reason of a lot of different spots, but I posted it on my channel, on my X account. But here's what this good old vet had to say in regards to this question.
Message.
My message is...
What does Remembrance Sunday mean for you? What is your message?
My message is, I can see in my mind's eye those rows and rows of white stones of all the hundreds of my friends and everybody else that gave their lives for what? The country of today. No, I'm sorry. the sacrifice wasn't worth the result that it is now.
Oh, well, I'm
What
sorry.
What do you mean by that, though? At this point?
What we fought for, and what we fought for was our freedom. We find that even now it's downside worse than what it was when I fought for it.
Oh.
Isn't that something? Isn't that something? And this is why I've always said in my podcast in regards to about freedom, the freedom of speech, the freedom to be able to do what you want to do, obviously without hurting anyone else, but the freedoms that people take for granted. But slowly governments like to pick away those freedoms, right? Anyway, we'll move on here from that. And this is Mark Carney getting asked a question a while back in regards to, basically having offshore tax money just kind of hidden away because you don't want it on Canadian soil for Canadians to tax and put towards their social programs. That's for Canadians to do, not him. But here we go.
CTV News. Good morning, Mr. Carney. You were at the helm of a company that quite clearly registered much of its business in Bermuda to avoid paying taxes, including, as CTV News reported, registered to an address of a bike shop in Bermuda. You have said that this is the way...
That's a fact. If you go on to Rebel News and watch one of their clips, Ezra Levant actually went to Bermuda and went to that bike shop and actually tried to speak to somebody in the Brookfield office. It's a tax haven that they hide money away so they don't have to pay taxes here in Canada. Fact.
The world works, and that in the case of pension funds, that leaves more money for pensioners. But in this case, it looks like just plain tax avoidance. This may be a legal practice, and as you say, as the world works, but is it ethical, Mr. Carney?
First off, I'm no longer at Brookfield. Secondly,
You check one of my podcasts I post. He still has over 500 stocks in all different kinds of companies, and those companies, some of them still are Brookfield.
this follows their arrangements follow the rules.
Did not really respond to the question as to your opinion as to where, if it was ethical. You wrote a book, Values. The thesis of that book was that capitalism or markets left to their own devices don't help humanity. For years, your party, the Liberal Party, has promised to stop the practice of tax avoidance that Brookfield and other companies have engaged in. Do you have the tools to do that? You said so. When are you going to release and tell Canadians what those tools are, and when will you implement them?
In terms of having a fair tax system in Canada, including for corporate taxation, it's absolutely a priority of my government. If we are re-elected, it would be a priority of our government to ensure that our companies are paying their fair share of taxes.
Did not really respond to the question. The thesis of that book was that capitalism or markets left to their own devices don't help humanity. For years, your party, the Liberal Party, has promised to stop the practice of tax avoidance that Brookfield and other companies have engaged in.
See, he doesn't want Canadians to do what they do and hide their money in tax offshores like Bermuda and all these other little tax havens. But it's okay for his company to do it because they're hiding literally billions of dollars in other countries so they don't have to pay for Canada. So here's Mario again. Mario's going to talk a little bit about this MP, this Liberal MP talking about the budget.
Stalled climate action, cutting tree planting, moving away from an emissions gap, winding down greener homes. No new money for climate action. On housing, it falls short of these specific promises in our platform, and it unfortunately falls well short of the wartime effort that many of us thought we'd deliver. The budget adds $140 billion in new spending over 5 years, $90 billion net after savings, and only 36% of the net new spending is capital. My kids shouldn't pay for today's military or for me to save $400 of income taxes. We see the budget commit to a new inefficient fossil fuel subsidy for LNG facilities. We do not need more public dollars chasing fossil fuels. Worse, we see major cuts of over $2.5 billion over 4 years to international development assistance. Overall, the budget meets the moment in part. But fairly, it does not live up to its promise of generational investments.
I can finally comfortably say I agree with the Liberal minister. The budget is horrible. And
Horrible.
Just to add to what he said, on a cash basis, that $280 billion that Mark Carney's looking at doing in capital expenditures, on a cash basis, meaning the cash outlay that we Canadians have to pay interest on, is actually nearly $500 billion.
$500 billion. We're going to be spending basically all the money that Canada collects on GST, and all the money that we put towards healthcare will be put towards the interest alone of the money that Canada owns. The budget officer actually said the other day in committee that Canada is driving itself off of a cliff. It's really simple. If you were to take, if you're only bringing in, say, $400 every week, but you're paying out $800 every week, but you're only bringing in $400, you're down $400. The next week, now you're down $800. The next week, $1,200, because you can't keep up. Sooner or later, the bank's going to be coming, and they're going to want your house because you can't even pay your bills. Your water's going to get shut off. Your hydro's going to get shut off. This is what's going to happen to Canada, because the interest alone that we pay is insane. Let that sink in. Here's another form of slavery, according to Elon Musk. Listen up.
You get taxed on what you own, you get taxed on what you buy, and you get taxed on what you own. And it's like, okay, this is, you know, taxes, 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 and you know, and then what does it get spent on? A bunch of the stuff it gets spent on you don't even agree with. So you know that's why we need to reduce the size of government and just spend less money and you know, let the people keep their a lot more of their hard-earned money. You know, it's yeah. So you get taxed on what you own, you get taxed on what you.
Imagine that, being able to keep more of your money. If you could do that, then you could do a lot more things and put stuff back in. But going back to the money issue, people always want money, right? So there's always places that want money. The Cancer Society wants money, Heart and Stroke wants money, blah, 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 right? All these places want money. But I'm sure you've all had this conversation with your friend before, your friends before, sitting around having a few drinks or having, you know, dinner, that for some reason that money that goes to these big companies, where it's supposed to go, they probably don't get it, right? And you're probably thinking, well, you know, you're hoping that they do, right? Well, here's a little clip of Joe Rogan talking about this exact same thing. Have a listen.
Network. Look at this. They raised $127 million. They paid to solicitors $109 million. And they spent percentage on direct cash aid to the actual kids is 2.5%. 2.5%. Look at the Cancer Fund of America. Less than 1% went to the actual thing. Kids Wish Network. Look at this. They raised $127 million. They paid to solicitors $109 million.
And that's something?
And they spent percentage on direct cash aid.
So when you've always said that, you know, the majority probably goes to administration fees and stuff, you're absolutely right. You're exactly right. So here's a little clip that I posted on my X channel the other day, and this is a little thing that I named Malice or Stupidity, because this was posted by Ryan Gerritsen. And this is what this guy had to say.
I am seeing more and more in today's society the embracing of stupidity, you know, shrouded under virtue. But for societies, for organizations, for sports teams, stupidity is far more dangerous than malice. And I'll give you an example. When you know somebody is acting with malice, you can anticipate their moves. You actually understand their morality. You don't agree with it, but you can understand that they have a morality that's different than you. What stupidity does, and there's a guy named Bonfman who wrote a theory of stupidity. He was commenting on how German society became stupid because they stopped questioning dumb things and they just rushed to show their obedience. And then what ends up happening is they get to their position because they've suspended their critical thinking. And then once you're making policies based on stupidity, there's no morality to it. There's no reality to it. They don't actually care about the facts. They're just doing a policy because they're told they have to do it. And that type of stupidity in our society is very dangerous to our society's success and long-term future. And I can list right now off the top of my head 100 policies that an intelligent group of human beings are instituting that are objectively stupid. It's like we're embracing compliance and obedience, which is translating into stupidity.
Exactly. But this is the problem. Just like you said about Germany, right? People don't question stuff. Why don't you question anything? You just go along life's happy trail and think it's all cool. And never question a thing. So the last thing I'm going to read to you here is a little something I dropped on X. And this is about, I love this saying. It's about iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Many people often mistake their own lack of knowledge for the absence of truth. Just because someone isn't aware of certain facts or hasn't been exposed to specific information doesn't mean that that information is false. It simply means they have not learned it yet. This mindset is one of society's biggest problems. Too many people dismiss what they don't understand instead of seeking to understand it. When ignorance replaces curiosity, meaningful discussion, learning, and progress suffer. True wisdom comes from recognizing that not knowing something doesn't make it untrue. It's an invitation to learn more. That's the way it works, right? Knowledge. Knowledge is power. Allows you to do whatever you want to do. Anyway, that's today's podcast, everyone. Talked a little bit about, like I said, the ostriches and November the 11th. And, of course, a little bit of what's going on with Carney and our budget here and a little bit of taxation. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Please don't forget to share. Don't forget to like. And until next podcast, everyone, cheers.